This is Ultimate Warriors, the show that explores the brutal world of combat and the fighters who rule it. Time to hit the streets, the battleground of the urban warrior. It's last man standing, with no rules. Coming up, welcome to the real Fight Club, where anything goes. We see what happened when the hard man of skateboarding took on a gang of 4 in a car park. And fighting back against street attacks, we explore some effective systems of self-defense. Two young men square up in a New York car park. It could be a scene from the movie Fight Club, but this is the real thing. An organised brawl with a crowd baying for blood. This scrap was cut short because a security guard appeared on the scene, so the pair retreated to an alleyway to start all over again for the camera and crowd. Organised street fights are not that uncommon in some countries, including America. This brutal clash attracted about 100 people to a field, somewhere in America's deep south. There are no rules in the vicious world of the urban warrior. You can punch, kick, gouge and scratch. Even a kick in the nuts is fine. Forget boxing, wrestling and martial arts. This is the most primeval form of fighting. And many of those who take part in these fights look upon it as a competition, keeping score of their victories, becoming the one to beat. In this case, the action took place in a desert instead of a ring or cage. But it was all about spectacle, competition, and the adrenaline rush. Proving to everyone who was the best of the best. But why do men want to display savage instincts like this?
We're made to fight, we're men. It's the Neanderthal, egotistic, adrenaline pumping. You can see fights flare up and it's no different from 200, 1,000. You know, you can go back as many years as you want. It's always the same. From you're in my cave, club, get out. And now you're on my front lawn, get out. You've invaded my space in a bar, you've looked at my girl wrong. It's always going to be, it's always going to happen. And it goes from individuals fighting, to groups of gangs fighting, to countries fighting, to the world fighting. Unavoidable.
Street fighting is as old as the ages. And organised brawls were usually between gangs, as depicted in the movie Gangs of New York. Those fights were usually over territorial claims and involved different ethnic groups, such as the Irish and Italians. These days, gangs still fight on the streets of Los Angeles. This very public brawl was over who controlled a suburban neighbourhood. Of course, most fights tend to be spontaneous, generally sparked by too much alcohol or an argument that gets out of hand.
Yeah, I've studied this probably as deep as the martial arts, because that's what it's all about. Why do men want to fight? And if you know why they want to fight, you can stop the fight from happening. And it's the same way as why have we all men got complete urges to have sex all the time? Really, because that's what we're made to do. We're made to have sex, and we're made to fight and protect ourselves. And if you look at how the world was made from love and war, and that's it.
Of course, it's not just men who like to rumble. Here are some sisters doing it for themselves. But it is men who rule the world of street fighting. They relish the thought of being known as hardnuts, urban warriors, kings of the street. Mike Vallerly is a top professional skateboarder. For 16 years, he has entertained his fans around the world with his skills and crazy stunts on the halfpipe. But the mega-friendly man from New York is not one to be messed with. He's the ultimate hard man and has made a name for himself fighting, brawling and scrapping. And he has the scars to prove it. From an early age, he decided to use his fists to settle disputes.
The earliest fight I can ever remember being in was in kindergarten, and it was against a kid in 3rd grade. And it was something about he threw milk on one of my friends walking home from school. I just thought that was wrong, so I went over and I beat up this 3rd grader, and I guess that's just where everything got started. I found out that I had a pretty high pain threshold and that I could get beat up and be unfazed by it. And so being able to take a punch meant I could always give a punch. I found out that I was pretty good at it, you know, real early on, and that it was a way for me to, in some ways, I mean, this might sound kind of corny and stupid, but actually to express myself. This was just my way of letting people know that if you come after me, I will respond. If you can only speak a physical language, or you're someone who's taunting or threatening or being, you know, aggressive in any way towards me, well, I can speak that language too, and I'm going to come right back at you.
Not all Mike's clashes have been on the streets. He dabbled in pro wrestling and ice hockey. But during one of his skateboarding tours, his reputation soared after he checked into a Seattle hotel.
Me and Alex go in the 7-Eleven, Big G waits outside. I go in, I get a bottle of water, Chalmers gets a carton of milk. Just as I'm opening the door, leaving the store, Big G kind of like whizzes past me screaming at somebody. "You motherfucking son of a bitch!" I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's up, Big G?" And I look over and there's 4 guys sitting in a Jeep with a case of beer on their laps. And he's like, Mike, these fellas over here disrespecting skating." I look at him and I go, "Well, so what? They're a bunch of fucking frat boy jocks. Who the fuck cares? Fuck those guys." And I go, "Let's go, man." And these guys sitting in their Jeep, as we're walking away, they yell, "Yeah, you skaters are real tough drinking water and milk." And I just stopped. Chalmers and Big G, they stopped too, and I thought you said we're leaving. You know, it's like, nah, I can't let that go. And I turn around, they all get out of the Jeep, and they're like, "We're gonna kick your ass, we're gonna kick his ass, we're gonna kick his ass." So that's funny, boys, because I take all 4 of you myself. And you can see on the footage, this guy's laughing at me. Took my shirt off because I figured you're gonna go with 4 guys, you know, don't give them anything to grab onto. And I proceeded to punch each of them in the head. One of them had a little bit of game in him. He thought he was gonna put up a good fight, but the reality is, if I wanted to kick his ass, I would have annihilated him. Within 20 seconds. Their tune changed. "Hey, we don't want to fight. Let's be friends. What's up, man? What's your name?" Oh, you know, all this stupidity. Like, now you want to shake my hand and be my friend? So I refused to shake their hands. I refused to talk to them. You know, I figured they got the message. You know, when people watch the footage, they really comment on how like aggressive and violent it is, and I really don't see it. I don't see it that way. I see it as I'm actually being a pretty polite guy. You know. Albeit, did I really have to fight? Did I really have to, get physical with these guys? Probably not. It would have been much easier, and probably the better thing to do would have been to walk away from it. But, it's just one of those moments in life, and one of those moments on that particular night where I just felt that, I wasn't going to back down. I was going to let these guys know that you can't just run your mouth like that with someone you don't know.
Mike didn't know the whole fight was caught on camera and was about to be posted on the internet.
I had no idea it was being videotaped. Bam Margera of CKY fame and Jackass, he was across the street in the hotel and he heard words being exchanged. He got his video camera out and he taped it. Of all the things I've done in my life, and I reckon I've done some pretty decent things. Whether it's professional skateboarding or, just being a good husband and father and family man, but no one wants to talk to me about any of those things. They want to talk to me about the fact that I beat up 4 guys at once in a 7-Eleven parking lot.
Up next, we travel the globe looking for ways to defend yourself against street attacks. See how to kick ass in your neighborhood.
I could grab his eyes and rake his eyes with my fingers. At that point, I could sit here and smash the back of his leg down, take him down violently, and then stomp on his head.
This is Ultimate Warriors. If you were attacked on the street, what would you do? Well, here's a look at some of the best hard-hitting self-defense systems out there. Street crime is on the rise and has spawned a huge industry in self-defense. There are thousands of schools and dozens of systems to choose from. One of the latest is Krav Maga, the official self-defense system for the Israeli military. Israeli citizens have to do national service, so Krav Maga was developed so they could learn life-saving self-defense in weeks, not years.
Krav Maga is means of survival. And because it's not in the ring, one-on-one, in reality, you will not lose a point. You will not lose a trophy to somebody else. You will survive. You'll be able to reach home safely. Krav Maga is working in all types of environments. It's cramped places, small rooms, in a car, outside the car, road rage situations, standing, walking, sitting, lying.
Now it's been embraced across the world for use in everyday life and can be learned by men, women and children.
We train Krav Maga in the hope never to have to use it. We try and do everything we can not to use it, to be aware, to avoid situations. When we do get to that position where we need to physically defend ourselves, which will almost certainly involve counter-attacking, this is what we practice a lot in the gym. So we should be able to turn on the ability to defend ourselves, to make our counter-attacks and to turn it off and go away.
The tactics involve attacking the vulnerable points of the body, shouting to get attention and using simple but effective moves before escape. Krav Maga hit the headlines when Jennifer Lopez used it in her movie Enough. Krav Maga classes saw a massive rise in women attending as a result.
We really did some research, and with my trainer we found out that this Krav Maga technique is something that's learned quickly, that women can actually beat men because you use their body weight against them, you know what I mean? And so it just seemed like the perfect thing. And then about 7 or 8 weeks before we started, I started working on it.
Whilst it may work for J-Lo, there are many alternatives to Krav Maga. One of the most explosive for the street is called V-Harness Jitsu, and it's all the rage in the US. New York City. The Big Apple attracts millions, but can also be fraught with danger and violence. Here we found the home to a self-defense system which has been developed to use on the streets of any bustling city. This is Professor David James. He teaches V-Harness Jitsu. It's brutal but effective.
V-Harness Jitsu is the most direct street self-defense system that I believe is available. The system was founded by Professor Florendo Visitation, better known as Professor V. One of his goals was to make sure that the average man, the common guy, the non-martial artist, everybody could have a way and a method of learning self-defense without necessarily being a martial artist.
The system's made up of jiu-jitsu, Filipino stick and knife fighting, and Thai boxing, and can be learned in a short amount of time.
This system is very unique. It's unique in the way of it's quick, because you don't spend 10 years here to become the grandmaster, to become the black belt so you can be proficient in the street. You be proficient here. Give me 3 weeks of your time. Give me a month of your time. I definitely know I can teach you things that you didn't know. I don't care what level of training you walk through the door with. You don't have to be an athlete here. You could be a couch potato. Your typical guy sitting down eating popcorn and chips all day long and you enjoy your beer. One thing about this system that's very unique is that I tell people, keep all your bad habits and come and train anyway. People automatically feel that when they join a school and a martial arts club that they have to become just David Carradine character. They have to become a monk. They now have to stop drinking and stop socializing and stop going out and start eating pure and all that, start thinking pure. That's a bunch of nonsense. It has nothing to do with learning how to defend yourself. When the man grabs you and aggressively pulls you towards him, your body goes in. When your body goes forward, my hands are here. His 2 hands are here. These hands are what we call dead hands. He can't take these hands off and hit me. So it gives me enough opportunity to do this. which is projecting the head backwards, sticking my thumbs in his eyes. That allows the groin coming forward. Now I can knee the groin. Now when the groin is shot, the man presents this to me. Now I can knee him to the face, or I can strike the shin, take the shin out, immediately take him down. Next point, boom, stomp the head, look around, I'm out of there, I'm gone. People do not understand the difference between self-defense and fighting. Bang! Self-defense is not fighting. Self-defense is stopping the threat. When you identify the threat, you stop it, you eliminate it before the person gets a chance to get the upper hand on you. That's self-defense training. That's what Jiu-Jitsu is. Touch! That first touch shocks the man, which is palm shot to the face. We touch high. That controls the high strike. We touch low to control the low strike. So we got high and a low concept. Then we touch high again. High! That will then send the body a different message, where the punishment now, the pain is going from high to low to high. His attention span is high. His hands are right here. Once again, because I kicked him high, his body's shot up, which allows me then to get in, apply my choke. I could choke this man out from this point. I could grab his eyes and rake his eyes with my fingers. At that point, I could sit here and smash the back of his leg down, take him down violently, and then stomp on his head. We use the anise, which is the stick and the knife part of our system. Touch, he will touch, pass, I'll redirect it, and I'll redirect it. And then the Thai boxing is the punching and kicking part of our system. Because when you hit a point where a self-defense situation starts to escalate into a fighting situation because it just got out of control, you have to have certain skills now. Where the person is pushing you, touching you, poking you, here. So now, when he moves, I change the focus. He's no longer looking at me. So if he's not looking at me, he can't see the next strike, which is here. He can't see the next strike, which is here. He can't see the next strike, which is here. I will take up a garbage can and hit you with it, if I could. If I'm in the midst of combat with you, we're in the midst of a situation, and you don't notice the ashtray on the table that's made out of maybe steel or maybe a marble ashtray, and I do, that's Jiu-Jitsu. I'm taking that and cracking you with it, because that will control your focus. By doing this massive repetition and doing it, I promise you, when it comes time for you to react, your mind will go blank, you'll black out, you won't remember a thing, but as soon as the person holds you or touches you or grabs you into that same type of situation you're more familiar with, the same hole you felt, the same amount of force you felt before, you spark right into action.
This is a brutal, no-holds-barred approach to traditional street fighting. Dirty techniques such as groin kicks, biting, and eye gouging are readily employed during fight situations.
So I want to take my finger, put it in his nose, and rip his nose off his face. That's my choice. What I do, for most people, look very violent. We're teaching somebody how to stop someone from hurting you. And if we have to do that and meet the level of the mindset of the person who's trying to hurt you, then so be it, you know, because there's no such thing as effortless self-defense.
From New York to Southampton in the UK, and it's another brutal lesson in the art of urban survival. This form of self-defense has been adapted from techniques taught to US Marines. It's more offensive than defensive, and that's how it differs from V-harness. The emphasis is on throwing the first punch or kick and making your escape. Teacher Lee Morrison was made aware of the importance of survival techniques from an early age after being bullied at school.
The life situations I've faced since the days of the school playground, growing up through adolescence, you know, the odd street fight and bar brawl. But really my education began during 12 years of door work. Everything else, the martial arts training that I've had kind of been a supplement to that.
The system he teaches is known as urban street combat. Lee's instructor took the techniques from the US Marines and adapted them for civilian use.
What I teach here is street smart self-protection classes, which is based predominantly on hand-to-hand combatives. Varied influence, but basically we're looking at formulating a basic self-protection game plan and with the power base of awareness, so that most people can spot a potential confrontational situation before it develops and avoid an escape.
It can be adapted to everyday situations on the street and can be fast and effective. In this example, Lee shows how to lull the attackers into a false sense of security before striking and making a getaway. Anything goes in this system, including the art of deception.
But the most important thing, it's backed up with the correct combative mindset. That is, that you have the preparedness and the willingness to do what's ever necessary physically to end a situation should you find yourself in one. The reason I like the combative stuff so much is because it survived the greatest pressure test of all. It was taken to war, and it was tested under the pressure of battle. Originally, it was obviously developed for the military, and then adapted for law enforcement and civilian use.
Lee is quick to point out that the classes he teaches are not merely about self-defense.
I dislike the term self-defense because it already indicates that a physical response is required, whereas there's a lot of things you can do before a situation needs to become physical. This is his fence, his lead hand. It's never static, it's constantly moving like this. Okay, it's to the individual. You're always going to have your hands in a position where you're going to protect this gap. This is vitally important. Now, if I go from here and slap his hand away like this, I've touched his fence. If I come forward and he pushes me back, I've touched his fence. In reality, you're never going to allow anyone to touch your fence more than twice without taking action. The ideal is going to be that if you have to hit first, hit fast and hard and then escape. If we can't escape after the initial first shot, then we're going to keep attacking until there's no more threat and then escape. That's our basic game plan.
Urban street combat is not for the squeamish. It requires extreme self-confidence as well as a high level of skill. But landing that first punch or kick against an assailant could be what saves your life. Next time on Ultimate Warriors, we pile drive the world of pro wrestling. From packed sports arenas to small hall shows, we find out why these tough guys hate the word fake. Adrenaline rush. Proving to everyone who was the best of the best. But why do men want to display savage instincts like this?
We're made to fight, we're men. It's the Neanderthal, egotistic, adrenaline pumping. You can see fights flare up and it's no different from 200, 1,000. You know, you can go back as many years as you want. It's always the same. From you're in my cave, club, get out. And now you're on my front lawn, get out. You've invaded my space in a bar, you've looked at my girl wrong. It's always going to be, it's always going to happen. And it goes from individuals fighting, to groups of gangs fighting, to countries fighting, to the world fighting. Unavoidable.
This is Ultimate Warriors, the show that explores the brutal world of combat and the fighters who rule it. Time to hit the streets, the battleground of the urban warrior. It's last man standing with no rules. Coming up, welcome to the real Fight Club, where anything goes. We see what happened when the hard man of skateboarding Organised street fights are not that uncommon in some countries, including America. This brutal clash attracted about 100 people to a field, somewhere in America's deep south. There are no rules in the vicious world of the urban warrior. You can punch, kick, gouge and scratch. Even a kick in the nuts is fine. Forget boxing, wrestling and martial arts. This is the most primeval form of fighting. And many of those who take part in these fights look upon it as a competition, keeping score of their victories, becoming the one to beat. In this case, the action took place in a desert instead of a ring or cage. But it was all about spectacle, competition, and the took on a gang of 4 in a car park. And fighting back against street attacks, we explore some effective systems of self-defense. Two young men square up in a New York car park. It could be a scene from the movie Fight Club, but this is the real thing. An organised brawl with a crowd baying for blood. This scrap was cut short because a security guard appeared on the scene, so the pair retreated to an alleyway to start all over again for the camera and crowd.